The rain was falling hard that morning. Jamal stood near the school gate, his bag hanging from one shoulder, soaked and torn. His shoes made squishing sounds with every step. Students passed by him, laughing and talking, but no one noticed him. He felt invisible. He looked up at the sky and whispered to himself, "I can't do this anymore." Jamal was only 15, but life had already made him tired. Every day at school felt like a battle. He wasn't stupid. He loved books, loved learning, but no one believed in him. His classmates made fun of his clothes. Teachers didn't even learn his name. That morning before school, he had searched for motivation online. He found a video of Denzel Washington speaking at a graduation. One line hit him hard. Fall forward. Every failed attempt is one step closer to success. Jamal paused the video and played that line again. Fall forward, he whispered, writing it on the back of his notebook. He didn't really understand the full meaning, but something about it gave him a little strength. Just enough to walk through the school gate. Inside, the hallways were loud and cold. Lockers slammed, shoes echoed. As Jamal walked to class, a boy named Troy bumped into him on purpose. "Watch it, trash boy." Troy laughed, pushing Jamal's shoulder. Jamal didn't say a word. He just kept walking, holding back his anger. In class, the teacher passed out test papers. Jamal looked at He had failed again. Big red marks covered the page. The teacher didn't even look at him. "Try harder next time," she said, already moving on to someone else. Jamal stared at the paper. He had tried. He had stayed up all night studying. But how could he focus when there was no light at home and his little sister was crying from hunger? That night, he sat on his bed in the small one-room apartment he shared with his mom and sister. The room smelled of old clothes and wet socks. His mom worked late at a diner, and his sister was asleep on the mattress next to him. He took out his notebook and read the line again. Fall forward. He opened YouTube again and watched more of the Denzel Washington speech. Dreams without. Goals are just dreams, and they ultimately fuel disappointment. That hit him even harder. He had dreams, but did he have goals? What were his goals? He looked around the room. He didn't want to live like this forever. He wanted something better. But he didn't know how to get it. No one had ever taught him. He looked at his sister's sleeping face. He thought about his mom working double shifts. He thought about Troy's voice laughing at him. His hands shook, but he picked up a pen and started writing. Finish school, no matter what. Learn one new thing every day. Don't give up, even if they laugh. Remember, Denzel's advice the next day at school, something changed. Jamal didn't walk faster. He didn't speak louder, but he held his head a little higher. In the library, he asked the librarian for a science book. She raised her eyebrows. No one had ever seen Jamal ask for a book before. She gave it to him quietly. He sat in the back corner and began reading. He didn't understand every word, but he kept reading, line by line, word by word. During lunch, he sat alone as usual. But this time, he was writing notes from the book. He wanted to build something. He didn't know what yet. Maybe a project for class. Maybe something to show the world he wasn't just some poor, quiet kid. By the end of the week, Jamal had filled 3 pages of notes and 2 pages of goals. He still failed tests. He still got pushed in the hallway. But inside, something was growing. A fire. A voice in his head repeated Denzel's words every day. Don't just aim to make a living. Aim to make a difference. One afternoon, while waiting near the school's trash bins, Jamal saw the old janitor, Mr. Henry, fixing a broken light with simple tools. Jamal watched quietly. Mr. Henry noticed him and smiled. "You like how this works?" Jamal nodded. "You got a smart look in your eyes," Mr. Henry said. "Most kids don't care how things work." Jamal didn't know what to say. He had never been called smart before. "Come by after school tomorrow," Mr. Henry said. "I'll show you something." Jamal didn't know it yet, But that moment near the trash bins was the beginning of everything. Something big was coming, and he was finally ready to fall forward. The classroom fell silent. Jamal stood in front of the blackboard holding a homemade science project in his shaking hands. It was a small model of a wind-powered water pump. He made it using bottle caps, wires, plastic spoons, and a broken toy motor he found near the trash. His voice was quiet. This is how villages without electricity can pump water using just wind power. It's cheap and easy to build. For a moment, no one said anything. Then, the teacher laughed. It wasn't a light laugh. It was loud, sharp, cold. "Really, Jamal?" she said, crossing her arms. "You expect me to believe you made this?" The class exploded with laughter. Troy, sitting in the second row, leaned back, in his chair. "Did you build that with trash from your house, genius?" Another student shouted. "Maybe the janitor helped him." Jamal's ears turned red. His chest tightened. His fingers clutched the project tighter. He wanted to say something. He wanted to shout. But the words got stuck in his throat. The teacher walked over, looked closely at the project, then turned back to the class. "This is not a science fair," she said. "This is a serious school assignment. If you want to play, do it outside." She handed the project back to him, carelessly. It slipped. It hit the floor. One of the spoons broke off. The laughter grew louder. Jamal slowly picked it up. His eyes burned, but he didn't cry. He walked back to his seat and sat down. The laughter faded, but the pain stayed. He stared at the broken project in silence for the rest of the period. That evening, he didn't go straight home. He sat alone on the school stairs until the sun began to set. His hands still held the broken model he had worked all weekend on. Cutting, gluing, testing, failing, fixing. He didn't even eat properly those 2 days, and it was all a joke to them. He wanted to throw it away. To quit. But then, a voice echoed in his mind. "Ease is a greater threat to progress than hardship." It was Denzel Washington again. He had written that line too, in the corner of his notebook, just under "fall forward." He opened the notebook and read the lines again. He whispered them like a prayer. That's when someone sat down beside him. It was Mr. Henry, the janitor. "You stayed late," Mr. Henry said. "Rough day?" Jamal didn't answer. Mr. Henry looked at the broken project in Jamal's hands. "You built that?" he asked. Jamal nodded slowly. Mr. Henry smiled. "That's good work. Don't let people who've never built anything tell you what has value." Jamal looked up. No one had said that to him before. "Come with me," Mr. Henry said. "I want to show you something." Mr. Henry took Jamal to the back of the school through a door marked storage. Inside was a dusty room full of old equipment, typewriters, fans, broken chairs, wires, batteries. "This used to be the school's workshop years ago," Mr. Henry said. "Before they shut it down." He turned on a small lamp. The light flickered. "I used to teach engineering," Mr. Henry said, "before my wife got sick. After she passed, I took this job to stay busy." Jamal's eyes widened. "You were a teacher?" Mr. Henry nodded. "I still am, if someone wants to learn." Then he turned to Jamal and smiled. "Do you want to learn?" The next few weeks changed Jamal's life. Every day after school, he met Mr. Henry in the old workshop. They fixed broken fans. They rebuilt toy cars. They opened batteries and studied circuits. Mr. Henry taught him how to think like a builder, not just a student. "Always ask why," Mr. Henry said. "And if someone laughs at you, it means they're scared of your questions." Jamal felt alive for the first time. He began reading more books, watching tutorials, writing down ideas. He even repaired his own model, made it stronger, better. This time, it pumped water from a small container using wind from a fan. One evening, Mr. Henry gave him a small flyer, City Youth Science Fair, open to all students. Jamal stared at it. "You should enter," Mr. Henry said. Jamal shook his head. I don't belong in places like that. Why not? Mr. Henry asked. They'll laugh at me, Jamal said. Mr. Henry leaned closer. Let them laugh, and when they're done, show them what you've built. Jamal didn't answer. But that night, he stood in front of the mirror, holding his project, and said quietly, Fall forward. He didn't know what would happen at the science fair. He didn't even know how to sign up. But for the first time, he believed he might belong. The wind was cold that morning. Jamal walked faster than usual. He held his science project in both hands, now improved, repaired, and stronger than before. His bag bounced on his back, full of notes, sketches, and wires. Today was the day of the City Youth Science Fair. He hadn't told anyone at school, not even his mother. Only Mr. Henry knew. But when Jamal reached the old workshop behind the school, the door was locked. He knocked once, then again. No answer. He looked around. The schoolyard was empty. Cold air brushed his neck. Mr. Henry? He called. Still silence. Jamal waited for 20 minutes. He checked the time again and again. He was going to be late. His heart beat faster. Where was Mr. Henry? Then, just when he was about to leave, the principal walked past and stopped. What are you doing here, Jamal? She asked. Jamal hesitated. I was supposed to meet Mr. Henry. The principal's face changed. Her eyes dropped to the ground. She looked sad. You didn't hear? She said softly. Mr. Henry was taken to the hospital early this morning. He collapsed while working last night. Jamal's mouth went dry. What? Is he okay? They're not sure. Yet, she replied. But I know he'd want you to go to your science fair. Jamal stood still, holding his project tighter than ever. At the science fair, the noise was loud and the lights were bright. Students from rich schools had tables filled with shiny displays, charts, and laptops. Jamal looked down at his small, handmade water pump. It looked tiny next to the robots and 3D-printed machines. He found a small table in the corner and quietly set up his project. Some people passed by and glanced at him. Others didn't even look. A group of private school students nearby laughed. As they showed off a project with flashing lights, Jamal felt the doubt return, that heavy feeling in his chest. He looked around at the suits, the cameras, the judges walking with clipboards. They all looked important, rich, powerful. He was just a poor boy with a recycled model. Then he took out his notebook and read his 4 goals again. Finish school, no matter what. Learn one new thing every day. Don't give up, even if they laugh. Remember Denzel's advice. He took a deep breath and looked at the pump. This is for you, Mr. Henry, he whispered. When the judges came to his table, they were quiet at first. Then one of them, an older man with a kind face, asked, What made you build this? Jamal swallowed hard. My neighborhood doesn't have easy access to clean water. I wanted to find a cheap way to help. The man nodded slowly. Did someone help you build this? Jamal smiled. A janitor. One of the other judges raised her eyebrows. A janitor? Jamal nodded. He used to be an engineering teacher. He taught me more than anyone else ever has. He then explained how it worked, how wind could move the blades, how the motion powered the small motor, and how water could be pumped without electricity. The judges listened carefully, and when Jamal was done, they clapped. After the fair ended, Jamal didn't wait around. He rushed to the hospital holding a small envelope in his pocket. At the front desk, he asked, Can I see Mr. Henry? The nurse checked her papers. He's in room 204, but he's resting. Jamal walked slowly through the hallway. His shoes echoed on the floor. His heart beat fast. He pushed the door open quietly. Mr. Henry lay on the bed, pale but awake. He smiled when he saw Jamal. I missed the fair, huh? Mr. Henry said weakly. Jamal nodded. But you didn't miss everything. He opened the envelope and took out a certificate. First place. Innovation for community. Impact Mr. Henry's eyes lit up. His smile grew. You did it, he whispered. We did it, Jamal said. They want to talk to me about a scholarship. They said this could lead to something bigger. Mr. Henry's eyes watered. I always knew you had it in you. Jamal sat beside him and said, I want to keep building. Not just machines, but a better life for me, for my family, for kids like me. Mr. Henry closed his eyes for a moment. Then promise me something. Anything. Promise you'll never forget where you came from or the people who helped you rise. Jamal nodded. I promise. Later that night, as he walked home with the certificate in his hand, he looked up at the stars. He remembered the first time he saw Denzel's video. The words came back clearly. Don't just aim to make a living, aim to make a difference. Jamal smiled. He was no longer just a quiet boy in a forgotten classroom. He was becoming something more. And this was just the beginning. Jamal returned to school with the certificate in his backpack. He held it carefully like treasure. First place. Community innovation. It felt like a dream, but he didn't tell anyone. Not yet. He wanted to wait until the right time. Maybe during the school assembly. Maybe when he could stand in front of everyone and show them that the boy they laughed at had achieved something big. But when he walked into the classroom the next morning, something was different. The laughter started again. Look who's back, Troy smirked. Still building robots from trash? Jamal said nothing. Another student chuckled. What did you win this time? Best garbage collector? Jamal kept walking to his seat, gripping the straps of his backpack tightly. He didn't understand. Why were they still laughing? He had done something real, something important. He wanted to scream, I won! I proved you all wrong! But something inside told him, don't waste energy proving yourself to people who don't want to understand. That voice in his head was calm, strong. It sounded like Mr. Henry. Later that day, during lunch, Jamal sat under the big tree behind the school, alone. He pulled out the certificate from his bag and looked at it again. He touched the golden letters. His name was there, clear and bold. Just then, a shadow covered the paper. He looked up. It was Troy. Behind him were two more boys, both bigger than Jamal. Is this it? Troy grabbed the paper from Jamal's hands before he could react. First place? Science fair? That's cute. Give it back, Jamal said, standing up. Relax, Troy laughed. We just want to see what makes you so special now. Oh, wait, nothing. And with that, Troy tore the certificate in half. Jamal's heart stopped. One of the other boys crumpled the pieces and threw them on the ground. They walked away laughing, not knowing what they had destroyed. Jamal stood still, staring at the torn certificate. His hands trembled, but he didn't cry. That evening, Jamal didn't go home right away. He went to the hospital again. Mr. Henry looked weaker, pale. His eyes were tired, but he smiled when he saw Jamal. You went back to school, Mr. Henry said. Jamal nodded. They laughed again. He whispered. They tore the certificate. They still think I'm nothing. Mr. Henry was silent for a moment. Then he said something Jamal would never forget. You want to make noise, Jamal? Then don't shout. Let your work shout for you. Jamal looked at him confused. Mr. Henry explained, they laughed because they're afraid that someone like you might go farther than they ever will, and they can't control that. So they mock it. Jamal sat down beside him. Mr. Henry continued. But the real answer isn't in fighting them. It's in building something so powerful that the world has no choice but to listen. He paused, then said softly, and your journey isn't over yet. The next day, Jamal met a man in a suit outside the principal's office. He was from a local science organization. He had seen Jamal's project at the fair. I've got something for you, the man said, smiling. There's a national competition coming up. It's bigger, more serious. The winner gets a full scholarship. We want you to apply." Jamal's eyes widened. "A scholarship?" he asked. The man nodded. "Full ride, top university, all expenses paid. But you'll have to improve your project. Make it bigger, better, real world ready." Jamal felt something rise in his chest. Hope, fire, courage. He took a deep breath and said, "I'm ready." That night, he opened his notebook again. This time, he added a fifth goal to the list: build something that changes lives. Then he got to work. Day, after school, he returned to the abandoned workshop. He studied new designs, ordered parts using money he earned fixing phones and old fans for neighbors. He skipped games, stayed up late, read books on wind energy, water systems, and engineering. The students still laughed, but Jamal didn't hear them anymore. He had a bigger mission now. Weeks later, on a stormy Friday afternoon, something happened that would change everything. The school electricity went out, lights turned off, fans stopped. The entire building fell into silence. It was a blackout. In the chaos, the principal called an emergency staff meeting. Students were told to stay in their classrooms. But in one corner of the school, behind the gym, a small windmill began to spin. The wind was strong that day, and Jamal's new prototype had been waiting for its test. Within 10 minutes, lights flickered in the teacher's lounge. Another 15 minutes, and clean water was flowing into the cafeteria kitchen using wind power alone. The janitor came, running, shocked. "Where is this power coming from?" One student pointed to the back window. They saw Jamal standing in the rain, watching the windmill spin. No words, no speech, just his work, speaking for itself. Rain hit the roof like soft drumming as Jamal walked home, soaked but smiling. He had just saved part of the school from a blackout. His wind-powered pump had worked better than he imagined. It wasn't just an experiment anymore. It was real. It had helped real people, and for the first time, some of those same people who once ignored him were watching. When he got home, his mother was waiting by the window. She looked worried. "Jamal, what happened?" she asked, taking a towel to dry his head. "You're all wet." He smiled and handed her a small folded paper from his pocket. "I fixed the lights at school, using wind." His mother blinked. "You what?" Jamal explained everything. She listened quietly. Then she hugged him tight. "I'm proud of you," she whispered. "So proud." The next morning was quiet. Jamal sat at the small table in the kitchen, eating toast, when the phone rang. His mother answered. Her eyes widened. She handed Jamal the phone, her hands shaking. "It's for you," she said. "Someone important." Jamal slowly took the phone. "Hello?" A calm voice answered. "Is this Jamal Walker?" "Yes." "My name is Dr. Alyssa Dean. I'm calling from the National Youth Science Council. We heard about your wind-powered water system and what you did at your school during the blackout." Jamal sat up straight. "Yes, ma'am," she continued. "We're impressed, very impressed. Would you be willing to come to Washington, D.C., and present your project at our National Science Showcase?" Jamal almost dropped the phone. "D.C.?" he repeated. "You'd be presenting alongside top students from across the country. We'll cover travel and hotel. You'll also have a chance to meet major innovators and leaders, including someone who personally asked to meet you." Jamal blinked. "Who?" There was a pause, then Dr. Dean said, "Mr. Denzel Washington." Time froze. Jamal's mouth fell open. He thought he heard wrong. "Denzel Washington?" he whispered. "Yes," Dr. Dean confirmed. "He saw your story online. The clip of your windmill in the rain has been shared thousands of times. He said your story reminds him of what he believes in: faith, hard work, and never giving up." Jamal sat back, his heart racing. I don't know what to say." Dr. Dean laughed softly. Say yes, Jamal. He didn't hesitate. Yes. The days that followed moved fast. Reporters came to the school. The principal, once unsure of Jamal, now proudly shook his hand. Even the students who used to laugh were quiet now. Some even clapped when he walked into class. Troy stared from a distance, arms crossed but said nothing. Even he knew. Something big was happening. At night, Jamal packed for the trip with care. His mother ironed his only dress shirt. She cried quietly, wiping her eyes when he wasn't looking. "You're going to meet Denzel Washington," she said, still in disbelief, "and show the world what you built." When they arrived in Washington, the city lights amazed him. Everything was big, tall buildings, wide streets, shining signs. He had never left his hometown before, never been on a plane, never slept in a hotel. But the moment he walked into the science hall, everything became real. Rows and rows of student projects lined the massive room. Solar cars, AI drones, robotic limbs. Jamal found his table in the community impact section and set up his wind-powered water system with quiet pride. He looked small next to the advanced machines, but his machine worked, and it mattered. That gave him courage. As he adjusted the pump one last time, someone tapped his shoulder. He turned around and froze. Standing there, taller than he imagined, wearing a calm smile, was Denzel Washington, the real Denzel. Jamal couldn't speak. His mouth opened, then closed again. Denzel smiled. "You must be Jamal." He nodded quickly. "Yes, sir. I saw the video," Denzel said, shaking his hand. "The way you stood in the rain, silent, strong, letting your work speak. That's what I always tell people. Don't talk, just do. You did that." "Thank you, sir," Jamal said, his voice shaking. Denzel leaned in closer. "You know why I'm really here?" Jamal blinked. "To tell you, don't stop. No matter how big this moment feels, your real work is just beginning." He handed Jamal a small card. "This is a mentorship program. If you want to keep growing, learning, building, this will help you go far." Jamal stared at the card, then back at the man he had once only seen in videos. He whispered, "Your advice, it changed me." Denzel smiled. "That's what advice is for, son. But it only works when someone listens." You listened. That night, after the event, Jamal stood in front of his hotel window. The lights of D.C. stretched far into the distance. He thought of his mother. He thought of Mr. Henry. He thought of the day the bullies tore his certificate and the day he stood in the rain, proud. Then he looked down at the business card in his hand and his own reflection in the glass. He didn't feel like a boy anymore. He felt like someone who had a future. And for the first time in his life, he believed he belonged in the room. The next morning, Jamal stood in front of a large golden door. It was tall, silent, important. Behind that door was the Innovation Roundtable, a private meeting between the country's top young inventors, top scientists, and national leaders. Only 10 students were invited, and somehow Jamal Walker was one of them. He wiped his hands on his pants. His heart was beating fast. He had never felt this nervous before. He looked down at his old shoes. Everyone else was wearing polished leather shoes. Expensive watches, fancy tablets. Some wore name badges from rich private schools. Jamal had none of that. He only had his mind, his machine, and the voice of Mr. Henry in his memory. Don't let the size of the room scare you, Jamal. Let your ideas speak louder than your fear. He took a deep breath and pushed the door open. Inside, the room was bright and shining. A long table sat in the middle. Around it were powerful people, scientists, professors, CEOs, even someone from the White House. And around them, 10 students stood beside their inventions. A voice welcomed him. "Mr. Jamal Walker, welcome." Jamal stepped forward and took his place. He felt so small. The girl next to him had built a robotic dog that could help blind people cross streets. The boy on the other side had developed a coding system that could detect wildfires using satellites. Jamal's project sat quietly beside him, a wind-powered water pump made from recycled parts. He looked at it. Then he looked around the room again. Everyone started presenting their work. One by one, they spoke clearly. They used big words. They used charts and videos. When it was Jamal's turn, the room went silent. He stepped forward, took a breath, and began. My name is Jamal Walker. I built a wind-powered pump that brings clean water to places with no electricity. He looked at their faces. They were listening. I didn't have high-tech tools. I used what I could find: scrap metal, wires, old bike parts. It's not perfect, but it works. He showed them a video, the day of the school blackout. Rain pouring, the windmill spinning, lights turning on. There were gasps, then silence. He continued. I didn't make this for a grade. I made it because people in my neighborhood lose power a lot. Some don't have clean water. I wanted to help. He paused, then said, I'm not the smartest. I'm not from a big school. But I know one thing. When your work speaks, you don't need to shout. The room was still, then clapping. Slow at first, then louder, real. After the session, a tall man in a navy suit walked up to him. He had gray hair and kind eyes. Young man, he said, you reminded all of us why we started in this field. Jamal blinked. I did? Yes, sometimes. We sit in these big rooms and forget what science is really for. You brought that back. He shook Jamal's hand and handed him a card. It had a silver seal on it. You're getting a grant, he said. $50,000. To improve your project. To help more communities. Jamal stared at the card. 50,000? He felt his hands shaking. Thank you, he whispered. As he walked out of the room, the other students nodded at him. Some smiled. Some looked surprised. A few even looked inspired, and for the first time he didn't feel small anymore. He didn't feel like the janitor's son from a broken neighborhood. He felt like a giant, too. Back at the hotel that night, his mother hugged him so tight he almost couldn't breathe. You did it, baby, she whispered. He looked at her and said, We did it. He pulled out his notebook and added 2 new goals. Help people across the world get clean water. Never forget where I came from. But as the night ended, a message popped up on his phone. It was from Troy, the boy who once laughed at him. Hey, saw the news. You really did it, crazy. I was wrong about you. Jamal stared at the message for a long time. He didn't reply. He didn't need to, because now the whole world was listening, and he wasn't done yet. Jamal stepped off the bus and looked around. He was home, the same cracked sidewalks, the same streetlights that flickered at night, the same old corner store. But something had changed, not the neighborhood, him. He walked with a quiet confidence now, a light in his eyes that wasn't there before. He had been to Washington, D.C. He had stood in a room full of giants. He had met Denzel Washington. But there was one person, one man, he needed to see. He walked past the school, past the basketball court, down to the small, silent building behind the gym, the janitor's office. He knocked gently. There was no answer. He pushed the door open slowly. The room was dark and empty. The tools were gone. The chair was gone. Mr. Henry was gone. Jamal asked around. No one had seen him for days. He tried calling the old number, disconnected. A feeling of worry filled his chest. Where did Mr. Henry go? Why did he leave? That evening, Jamal sat at home thinking. He remembered every word Mr. Henry said to him. You got something inside you, boy. Don't let this world tell you you're less. Even if they don't clap now, one day they will. He wanted to show him everything. The grant, the news articles, the photo with Denzel. But none of it felt complete without Mr. Henry. So he did something bold. He wrote a letter, and at the top, he wrote, "To the man who believed in me." First, in the letter, Jamal told everything about the science fair, about the crowd that clapped, about the grant, the dream. The plan to build water pumps across poor towns. He wrote it all. Then he took the letter, placed it in an envelope, and wrote on the front, "Mr. Henry, wherever you are." He gave the letter to the school office. "Please," he said, "if you ever hear where he is, send this." Weeks passed. Jamal returned to school, but he wasn't just a student anymore. He was a guest speaker in science class. He was starting a club to teach kids how to build real-world tools from recycled materials. He even went to other schools to talk about clean water, energy, and dreaming big. People listened now. But Jamal never bragged. He remembered the struggle, the loneliness, the days no one clapped. He remembered what Denzel said. "Your real work is just beginning." One day, while Jamal was fixing a small water purifier in the school garden, a boy walked up to him. He was young, maybe 10, small. "Quiet. Are you Jamal?" the boy asked. Jamal smiled. "Yeah. My brother said you used to get laughed at, but now you're famous." Jamal chuckled. "I'm not famous," the boy nodded. "Well, I want to be like you." Jamal looked at him, his heart warm. "You already are," he said. "You're just at the beginning." That night, Jamal was walking home when his mother called from the porch. "Mail came," she said. "There's something for you." He walked up slowly. There was a small envelope on the table. No name, no address, just one word on the back. "Thanks." Inside was a photo, a black and white picture. It showed Mr. Henry standing outside a small house in a quiet town, holding Jamal's letter in one hand and smiling. There was one sentence written under the photo. "You were never just a janitor's son. You were always something greater." Jamal held the photo tight. He didn't cry. He just stood there, heart full, because now he knew Mr. Henry had seen him, believed in him, and was still watching. It was a cool spring morning when Jamal stood backstage. The auditorium was full. Hundreds of people waited in their seats. Teachers, students, parents, reporters, even people who had once ignored him. Jamal rubbed his hands together. He wasn't nervous, not anymore. He had spoken in front of national leaders. He had spoken on television. But today was different. Today, he was home. And this time, the mic was his. A voice called out, "Please welcome Jamal Walker." The crowd clapped. Jamal stepped out, wearing his simple blue shirt and jeans, just like always. No suit, no tie, just himself. He looked out at the sea of faces, some smiling, some unsure. He walked to the center and paused. Then he spoke. "I was never supposed to be standing here." He let the words hang in the air. "I wasn't. Top of my class. I didn't have rich parents. My mom worked night shifts. My father was gone. I almost gave up." He looked toward the back row, where his mom sat, holding back tears. "People laughed at me. They said I talked too soft, that my ideas were too simple, that I was just a janitor's son." He paused. "But you know what changed everything?" The room was silent. One person believed in me. He held up the photo. "Mr. Henry, the janitor in our school. No one saw him, but he saw me." He pointed to the crowd. "That's all it takes. One voice, one push, one person to say, 'You matter.'" He stepped closer. "We're so busy waiting for the world to notice us, we forget we can be the first to believe in ourselves." The screen behind him lit up. Photos showed Jamal's journey, the blackout at school, The windmill pumping water, the science fair crowd, the round table in Washington, the meeting with Denzel Washington, the new water pumps being built in villages. The crowd watched in awe. But Jamal wasn't done. He looked at the younger kids in the front row. Some of you feel invisible right now. Like no one sees you. But I do. I was you. He smiled. People think success is about being loud, having followers, being liked. But real success? He tapped his chest. It starts in here. He paused again, then said something that made the entire auditorium go still. The first time I almost quit, I was sitting alone. Then I watched a video of Denzel Washington. He said, "Don't just dream, work, fall forward. Don't quit." He smiled. And I didn't. The final slide showed one quote. "Your story is not over. You're just on a tough chapter." The audience stood, clapping, cheering. Some were crying. Even the teachers who once overlooked Jamal stood in silence because they knew they had just witnessed something greater than a speech. They had heard the message everyone needs to hear. As the crowd left, a little girl ran up to him. She had big eyes and curly hair. "Mr. Jamal, I want to build something too." He bent down and smiled. "What do you want to build?" She thought for a moment. "A robot that hugs people when they feel sad." Jamal laughed gently. "I think that's the best idea I've heard all day." He gave her a fist bump. "Go build it." That evening, as the sun went down, Jamal stood alone near the garden behind the school. The windmill still turned, soft, steady. He looked at it and whispered, "We did it, Mr. Henry." Far away, in a quiet town, an old man opened the newspaper. He saw Jamal's face and smiled, because sometimes the smallest voices leave the loudest echoes, and sometimes the advice you ignore from someone like Denzel Washington could be the very thing that changes your life forever.